Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you again with another Tearlaments deck profile, and today's focus is going to be on the Horus variant, which, it's pretty much the bread and butter. It's the one that you see most common, even though currently you do see people frequently testing a lot with different engines, more specifically with like the Nemesis archetype, for example, where they're typically ending on like Thunder Dragon Colossus and Protoss. But I'm here to tell you, you really don't need to do that. Like the normal stuff is still just as good, if not better, thanks to the addition of the third malicious. So with that out of the way, let's just jump straight into the deck profile. Now, when it comes to the monster lineup for the Horus variant, the monster lineup is honestly pretty streamlined. You won't really see too much innovation. Your choices are basically playing like a King of the Swamp package, playing Shaddolls, or playing Dangers. Sometimes you can play all three of them, but I don't like doing that. Even so, we're of course going to be starting off with 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart. Pretty much the heart and soul of the deck, thanks to all the limits and bans that this deck has received throughout the years. And I gotta say, you pretty much have to play 3 just because it does so much, right? If you started with Tearlaments Scream, you're basically always gonna have something guaranteed. And then it's pretty much like gonna be your main starter. And then in addition to that, it also gives you access to like your Bahamut Toad lines. And this deck can set up a bunch of negates pretty easily, even with the loss of Bear in the floor. So yeah, you definitely gotta play 3. And then to go with the 3 Tearlaments Reinoheart, you're of course playing 3 Tearlaments Kashtira, which on normal or special summon mills the top 3 cards of either your deck or your opponent's deck, and then when it's sent to the graveyard, it mills 2 more cards. And then for the one of Tearlament monsters, being the fusion summoner or the fusion summoners, you have the one Tearlaments Scheiren, who mills 3 by summoning itself from hand and discarding a monster, Tearlaments merrli, who mills 3 on normal or special summon, and Tearlaments Havnis, which mills 3 by your opponent activating a monster effect on the field and you revealing this card in your hand. If we could play more, obviously we would, but since they're all limited, we just play 1 of each. And that's it for the Tearlament lineup. You pretty much just have to max out on it to have access to it at all times. And then for the honorary Tearlaments, you have the 2 Kashtira Fenrir, who on his own is pretty much just like an imposing body that a lot of decks pretty much have to deal with them almost immediately, just because things get out of hand really fast. And if it for some reason survives a turn, it'll always just continuously add to your advantage by being able to either add itself or your Tearlaments Kashtira. So yeah, just a really good card. Then for, I guess, like extenders or playmakers, you have 3 Destiny Hero Malicious. So we're playing 3 Malicious, of course. It gives us even easier access to cards like Beatrice, for example. And this basically took the place of Destrudo, which I unfortunately just had to cut because Baron's banned. And since this isn't like a synchro dedicated build, I didn't really see the need to actually play Baron. Like, sure, you could still link and exceed someone with it occasionally, but yeah, I'd rather just play the 3 Malicious instead of the 1 Destrudo. So yeah, 3 Mali, and then it does do a lot for the deck. I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, it gives you easy access to Beatrice and just a bunch of other cards in your extra deck, so it's a very welcome addition to the deck. Then, since this is the Horus variant, you have to play your 3 Imsety Glory of the Horus and your 1 Hapi Guidance of Horus. Not much to say about that. Good cards are good. If you get ashed, you feel really bad. If you don't, you feel like the king of the world. Then, for us personally, we're going to be playing 2 Beastking of the Swamps. So we did lose Baron, and I'm not a fan of Dangers. I hate Dangers. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I just don't like the way that those cards basically interact with the game. I don't like that type of luck, basically. But I don't really enjoy Shaddolls either, just for a personal bias. So I'm pretty much just left with Beastking of the Swamp, and that's perfectly fine. Being able to make Tearlaments Rokolos in place of Baron de Flor to help you help prevent yourself from getting Nibiru'd is honestly just invaluable. And it's still a really good card. A lot of decks special summon or activate effects as special summon, so Rokolos sending cards and negating effects, it's just a really valuable resource. And this card's also a water monster that's a level 4, so it does make it a little bit easier for you to be able to use this to summon cards like Bahamut Shark into Toad as well. So yeah, just 2 Beastking of the Swamps. And then for the final monsters, you just play your shufflers, being the 1 Keldo and the 1 Mudora. And with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion of the deck. And when it comes to the spell and trap lineup, we basically just maxed out on every card that can be maxed out, because that's just the way this deck goes, right? Everything is either like a really good one of or something that's still at 3 that's also really phenomenal. So as a result, you're playing the 3 Primeval planet Perlereino. Much like every other field spell that Konami tends to make in the modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, field spells tend to do way too much, and this card is no exception, because on activation, it adds a Tearlament monster from your deck to your hand. It also boosts all your Tearlaments and your fusion monsters by 500 attack, And lastly, when a tier monster gets shuffled back into the deck, you get to pop a card for free. Now, why it does all that, I don't know. Ask Konami, but we're not going to complain, you know? As long as we have cards like this at 3, we're going to continue to abuse them at 3. And then to go with our 3 Primeval Planet Perlereino, you of course have your 3 Tearlaments Scream. I'm still a really big fan of playing 3 Scream just because I feel like it allows you to pretty much play the most consistently, or consistently play the game the most. And what I mean by that is that if this format is like really hand trap heavy, right? The chances of you getting hit by like Imperm, Ash, Veiler turn 1 are honestly pretty high. So having something like a Tearlaments Scream, which can essentially allow you to play during your opponent's turn, is just invaluable, as your opponent is going to be really low on resources after this card resolves. And yeah, if you believe hard enough, this will always hit the right cards no matter what. So yeah, you got to play 3 of it, and it does pair really well with like your Tearlaments Reinoheart, right? Like Reinoheart Scream is pretty much one of the best openings you could possibly hope to achieve with this deck. And it's not even because like it guarantees you something, right? Because let's face it, it's not always going to guarantee you something, but the possibilities that you can just accomplish off of these 2 cards alone are just, they're crazy. To put it simply, it's just crazy. Then for the final 3 of, you're playing 3 Triple Tactics Talent. So this used to be Super Polymerization, and then I saw that Snake Eyes Fire King is, or not Snake Eyes Fire King, just pure Snake Eyes is still the best deck. And we still can't super play that board, right? Because it's basically Flamberge plus like Formula Synchron plus Omega, and like nothing on that board can be super polyed. So we're just going to say, forget it. We're going to play Triple Tactics Talent. And this card is really phenomenal as well. Just because you can use it whether you're going first or second pretty much every single time. Just because of how hand trap heavy this format is and how monster heavy the format is as well. What can I say? This card is broken. I definitely feel like most decks should be playing 3 if you can play 3 of this. Then we're going to be playing 2 King Sarcophagus. It's a no-brainer to play this card because we are using the Horus engine. If we weren't playing this, there'd literally be no point in using cards like Hapi or Imsety. So yeah. And then this is also like another really important card to help you get rid of the bricks, right? And you will be drawing triple malicious. So even if you hard draw King Sarcophagus, you're still pretty fine, honestly. You just discard the malicious, fill up your graveyard, and then you can just go to town from there. We play a bunch of 1-ofs, being like the 1-of Foolish Burial, the 1-of Foolish Burial, and the 1-of Foolish Burial. But no, literally these cards basically all accomplish the same thing. They give you access to a specific monster that you need in that situation. With Foolish Burial goods, typically sending either Triivkarma, which in turn gets you any tier spell and trap, or it can even send sulliek if your hand is good enough to get you access to like Tearlaments Kashtira almost immediately. You have the Foolish Burial, which is foolish, and then Tearlaments Grief, which is like an E-Telly plus a Foolish Burial combined. And then if it's into the grid by card effect, you get to add a Banish Trap from your deck to your hand. So, you know, pretty solid cards. And then for the final spell, you just play the 1 Call by the Grave to go with our 3 Triple Tactics Talent. So, yeah, you know, nothing too crazy for the spell lineup. And then for the traps, you just play the 2 sulliek with the 1 Triivkarma. And with that, that's the main deck, 40 cards like always. Now we can finally go to the extra deck. Now as far as the extra deck goes, we basically just drop Baron DeFleur for another broken extra deck monster. But even so, let's just start off with the Link monsters being the 1 Cross Sheep. I still really enjoy the versatility that this card offers you because you're pretty much always going to be able to resolve one of these effects at some point during your tournament run. As a lot of decks are playing Synchro monsters, a lot of decks are playing Ritual monsters, so through the use of Triple Tactics Talent, you can just take them, make it point to his own Cross Sheep points to and gain the additional effect, depending on what it's pointing to. And then, of course, we play plenty of Exceed and Fusion monsters as well, so you're pretty much always going to have a chance to use everything. And yeah, like I said, I just love cards like this that pretty much allow you to express yourself as a player and just make so many different plays depending on what's provided for you. Then for the other Link monsters, you play the 1 IP Masquerena in order to summon SP Little Knight, which yeah, it's a good card. I always say that. And I really just, I can't express, like, if you don't have one of these, you really should get one, because most decks are pretty much always going to be better with it. Like, I know it's expensive, but like the price tag is definitely worth it. And I guess if you were looking for like a budget alternative, you could play like Sprite Sprint, I guess, to be able to send merrli during your opponent's turn. But it just doesn't have the same impact that SP Little Knight has, right? Because Little Knight pretty much immediately eliminates a threat, as opposed to merrli, which can maybe summon Kaleido Heart. And then in addition to that, it gives you like a bunch of protection from other cards as well, because it helps you dodge like cards like Imperm, Valor, Nibiru. It does so much for the deck. This card is just phenomenal. And then for the final link monster, you're playing the one Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess. So this is basically what we replaced Baron DeFleur with. And sure, it's not able to negate spells and traps, but being able to negate multiple monster effects backed by cards like Rule Colossus, Beatrice, Totally Awesome is basically the same thing. And yeah, this card is just, it's so good. And it probably should have gone on the list with Savage and Baron, if I'm being honest, but it's not. So we're going to abuse it until it is. And yeah, this card is pretty much going to be like an auto include, and it's still really easy to make as well, with Cross Sheep providing you infinite fodder, Malicious providing you infinite fodder. Yeah, this card is just stupidly easy to make with a really strong board. And that's it for the link monsters. Then for the exceeds, you play the one Time Thief Redoer, the one Bahamut Shark, the one Totally Awesome, the one Beatrice Lady of the Eternal, and the one Zombie Vampire. That's it for the exceed monsters. And then let me just talk about Zombie Vampire briefly, because everyone pretty much just assumes that we only play this because it mills 4, right? And, you know, that is true. It does mill 4 cards from your deck and your opponent's deck. But let me talk about why milling cards from your opponent's deck is actually just invaluable. And that's because it gives you insight into what your opponent is playing. And in the past, pretty much knowledge is always power, right? Having knowledge of what your opponent is playing allows you to shape your board and mold it more effectively, so that you're not just blindly making something that doesn't matter, right? Say, for example, I don't know, you're playing against like Cyber Dragons, and you know that they enjoy contacting with monsters in the extra monster zone. So because of like just this little bit of information, you can make it so that if they do end up contacting you, you're not going to be burning a key of resources such as like your Apollousa. And as a result, you can pretty much just like plan appropriately, and just getting that little bit of knowledge is just invaluable, right? And a lot of the times it just seals the deal completely. So yeah, Zombie Vampire is a really good card if you know how to use it properly. And then, as I said, that's it for the exceed monsters, and now we can finally move on to the fusions. So we have the one Mudragon, the one Garura, and the one Predaplant Dragostapelia. Basically your Super Poly targets that we're still playing, even though Super Poly's on the side, and that's because you still are able to summon them fairly easily with your own monsters. You know, just recycling resources and pretty much just like cycling through them, right? Garura helps you make Beatrice a lot more easily. Mudragon allows you to make Bahamut Shark more easily to give you access to Totally Awesome. You can recycle then those two monsters into Predaplant Dragostapelia to be able to negate monster effects. You know, you just continuously cycle through them. So yeah, you got to play 3 of them, or all 3 of them still. You play your one Destiny Hero Dangerous to help you get instant access to Beatrice, your one Tearlaments Reinoheart, since we hate Nib in this household, and the one Tearlaments Reinoheart to break your opponent's boards and their spirits. So with that, that's the Tearlament deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!